Seems like we're probably going to go a decade between major Elder Scrolls releases.
I think everyone should be very patient.
And that's like...
Welcome, folks. I'm Livid. In today's video, I'm going to let Todd Howard, the director of Bethesda Game Studios, explain why Elder Scrolls 6 is taking so long. Believe it or not, there are some people online who believe that this game is 15 years in the making, that these types of games take decades to make, that when Skyrim dropped on 11/11/11, Bethesda went right to work on the sequel. But I'm going to let Todd Howard refute those baseless accusations. I'll be jumping in here and there to give some of my own opinions too. All right, let's get started.
Yeah, well, because I remember it was a couple years ago on this show where you sort of talked about, your longer term philosophy for the studio, and that, you were going to do the Elder Scrolls 6 after this other mystery game that was sort of in between. So I guess we now know what that mystery game is?
Yes, it's Starfield,
okay.
Which is incredibly exciting for us. We've been working on it for a long time.
Yeah.
And, it's one of those things where even though we're announcing it, there'll be a time, obviously, where we really show it off and dig deep, and that'll be closer to its release.
Announced them, but he said it really was just a logo resolve, and there's not a lot. You said it was, I think it was a next generation single player experience. Your time, how you're sort of, you've got 3 studios now in BGS. I mean, where are you focusing your time right now?
I tend to, look, first of all, we have a great team.
Yeah.
And I've worked with a lot of these people. The average time is over a decade.
Yeah.
And they really know their stuff. So it doesn't take me kind of digging in the weeds on everything.
Yeah.
I tend to spend my time up front when we're doing a game,
Yeah.
creatively, what is this going to be? And then as it's coming in, Fallout 76 right now is dominating our studio's bandwidth because that's the game that's coming out, and we have more people on that project than we've ever had on any project. But then the mobile game, Blades, is it's amazing, and that's an awesome team. Most of them are in Montreal, but we also do work in Rockville on that game.
Yeah.
And that's fun to do as well. So for me right now, I'm still a kid in a candy store. I get to look at all of these games and work with all of these amazing people.
But is it transitional for you? Because I think for many times your team, you were focused on kind of one project. It was all in 100% on that. And now you've got, feels like 4 or 5 things that are sort of competing for attention.
Well, the other thing is, I think it's from the outside. It's viewed one way. We always overlapped.
Okay.
A Oblivion into Fallout 3, into Skyrim, into Fallout 4, and then Fallout Shelter, and doing VR versions. Yeah. And so this is just, it's a larger scale of that, but it's the same, where we'll do pre-production with a smaller amount of people until the game is really there.
Right.
And then when we enter production, we move the bulk of the studio to that game, but not all of the studio. And then as it's, coming in to get finishing for shipping, that's where our focus is.
So would you say, Starfield, Elder Scrolls 6, are they in production now?
I would say Elder Scrolls 6 is in pre-production, and Starfield is in production. It's a game we've been making for a while.
When you were on the show a couple years ago, Elder Scrolls 6, you said that, I think something along the lines, someone reminded me on Twitter last night, that the technology wasn't there yet for the game you wanted to build when you said this thing was 2 years ago on the show.
Yes.
Is the technology there now?
It's getting closer.
Okay.
Todd says it himself right here. They've got a bunch of different projects that the smaller studios are working on. He works with the main team working on their big titles. In 2018, they had only started pre-production. Later in the video, you'll hear him explain more about how that pre-production looks. But my summary is that one big team works on the next single-player entry game at a time. There is only a small team that works on whatever game comes next until the current project is done. During this interview, they are working on Starfield. Starfield came out in 2023. By Todd's own words, that would mean the big team would have moved over to Elder Scrolls 6 around that time. Now, if you want to give Todd a couple years of a pass due to COVID, fine. But by 2018, it had been 7 years since the release of Skyrim, and they had only started pre-production. One of the highest selling and most influential games in history is Skyrim. Its sequel didn't even get started on pre-production until 2018.
What are the sort of pros and cons of letting that series sit dormant for that long?
Well, first of all, Elder Scrolls Online is hugely popular. And the team doing that at ZeniMax Online is fabulous. So it's not that we're not feeding high-quality Elder Scrolls to people.
No, but
I know.
You know yourself that a lot of your fans don't want to play with other people in the Elder Scrolls world.
Todd was trying to deflect there by mentioning the Elder Scrolls Online, but the interviewer does a fantastic job recognizing what Todd was trying to do and calls him out on it. Almost the exact second that Todd gets pushed back, he starts going, yeah, I know, because he knew what the interviewer was trying to say.
people.
No, but
I know.
You know yourself
Yeah,
that
I know,
a lot of
yeah.
your fans.
This series was built on single-player experiences. He asked you about The Elder Scrolls 6, not ESO DLC.
The gap in between is obviously going to be long. On one hand, I think it's good to miss things. You know what I mean? I think that makes people come to it with really, really fresh eyes. And I think when they eventually see the game and what we have in mind, they'll understand the gap more in terms of technology and what we want it to do.
I guess it'll be the first time that Elder Scrolls has missed a whole console generation.
In a certain way, yeah, we put out the special editions, but yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yes, it will.
Ah, yes, the multitude of special editions that were so hard to develop, Todd. You're right. It's basically entirely new games every time you release Skyrim Special Edition.
Are you thinking about 6 in a whole new way, or is it just the fact that you are busy with Starfield and technology kind of pair with that at all, with allowing you to change your thinking?
It's a little of both, right? We had done so many things. We're going Elder Scrolls Fallout, Elder Scrolls Fallout.
Yeah.
You have this Starfield game in your head. You sort of say, well, when? It can be never. You can say never. We're creatives, and it's like, okay, we have to make this game, and this is the time. And so Elder Scrolls 6 is going to have to wait a little bit. And plus, again, Elder Scrolls Online is doing so well. It's so vibrant that this is the time. If we could compress that time and have it all happen faster, I could wave a magic wand. Of course we would. But we're not going to sacrifice that.
I mean, you could theoretically farm it out to one of the other BGS studios, and you just oversee it from here, if you wanted it, out that badly. But it will be done here by you.
The kind of things that we're talking about are going to take a lot of people.
Yeah.
Every BGS studio will probably be involved in that game, and even Starfield right now, not really in Austin, but in Dallas and in Montreal, there's staff on Starfield as well.
And this is where it's Todd's specific leadership style that comes into question. For a while, it had been Elder Scrolls Fallout, Elder Scrolls Fallout. Skyrim is one of the highest selling games of all time. Then Fallout is extremely popular in its own right. Then comes Starfield. Yeah, I understand the desire as developers to make content for you. I have that same logic with my own channel. I know when I start playing an obscure game for 20 years ago, I'm probably not going to get a lot of views on it, but I do it for me. It's what makes this fun. The big team that works on the main games probably wanted a break from the other titles, but it's still an experimental passion project. That should have been given to a smaller team to work on for 15 years.
I'm not going to fly 3,000 miles and not ask about Elder Scrolls 6 at least a little
Sure,
bit.
Go ahead. Fair question. I get asked a lot.
It's going to be roughly, probably 15 years between Elder Scrolls games, because you're busy with another little thing called Starfield, which we'll talk about in a minute as well. Is that a good thing, do you think, or is that not ideal?
Well, look, I think that's a really great question and a way of putting it. For me, when I look at franchises, is it vibrant? Okay, Skyrim still is. Elder Scrolls Online is huge. It's one of the biggest online games in the world, and that's part of our company, even though our studio isn't developing it. We work with them. I think they've done an absolutely phenomenal job. So when I look at the Elder Scrolls as a franchise, is it healthy? Is it doing well? Yes, 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 yes. Would you plan to have the kind of gap we're having between Skyrim and the follow-up? I can't say that's a good thing. Right? I wish I could wave a wand and the game that we want to make and we have in our head, we're starting things on, just came out. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But there's other things we want to do, right?
A few years later, and Todd is still saying the same things. Skyrim is still selling. Elder Scrolls Online is amazing. The strange part is how he takes the success of the Elder Scrolls brand and says that's why they aren't going to develop new ones. Skyrim and ESO are still so popular, so why would we make any more right now? Again, this isn't the strenuous labors of game development. He is actively directing the big team to work on other projects. The success of Skyrim was to the detriment of Elder Scrolls 6.
Starfield, thinking about Elder Scrolls 6. So what's it take to take a game from the idea to find the final product?
We were always overlapping. While we're making one game, probably by the midpoint of one game, we've had enough conversations to understand what the next one's going to be. What are the big ticket, like, where's it set? What's the tone? Is there a big ticket feature or two that make it really unique? And then when we're finishing one game, we start, before that, we start concepting. So we'll do concept art. So take Elder Scrolls 6. We forgot where it's set.
What's the tone? What are the big features? We discussed the beginning of the game, which we've had for a very long time.
Where's it set again? Just kidding.
Yep. In Tamriel. Again, we're working on the world. You're then doing concepting and design for the world. And then once we're wrapping up one game, we can really start prototyping. And that's still what we call a VS, vertical slice. So you still don't have the full team on it. And it's a larger chunk of the game that you can play. And then once you feel good about that, you're going to bring on the rest of the team. And we're fortunate that the other games we've done are popular enough that we can be doing DLC and content and those kind of things while we're getting the one going. And then we're at full production where we're sort of at maximum size. We just call that production. That's like the full production period. And that, depending on the game, can run a year, 2 years, maybe more. And then you kind of have a final 6 months to a year on a game, which is, okay, we've built everything now. And usually it needs a lot of glue, where we have a lot of very different elements that maybe aren't clicking together the way you want outside of the regular polish for levels and features. And we're shaving and gluing and sticking things together so that it's not this schizophrenic game experience that things flow from one into another.
By the time of this interview in 2022, it's still 10 months before Starfield is released in September of 2023, which means they've only done conceptual work with a small team on Elder Scrolls 6 for the last 4 years. He calls this the vertical slice period. Eventually, you bring on the main team after that for finalizing, which they call actual production. That's another 6 months to a year. Then another gluing phase, which he doesn't really give a timeline on. If I could speculate a little bit, I would say from the release of Starfield in September of 2023, that we would still be in the actual production phase still, not the glue phase. Again, I'm not sure what the glue phase length would be like, but at this point I would say it would be coming out anytime between 2026 and 2028. Just using his own metrics.
Gamers love great games, so getting to work with ZeniMax to bring their amazing collection of games to Game Pass is just an incredible opportunity for us.
Are you making cuts to this company as you acquire it, or are you going to leave it alone?
Our plan is to leave it alone. I mean, ZeniMax has an amazing track record of building great games. Our goal is to make ZeniMax the best ZeniMax they can be, working individually with their studios on the great platform technology that we have, getting their creators' feedback into the things that we need to go build. That's just a critical flywheel for us innovating, is the feedback of the world's best creators on our platforms.
All right, so Microsoft bought ZeniMax back in 2020. Microsoft has a lot of cash. Phil Spencer, the head of Xbox at the time, says he's not going to mingle too much with Bethesda. Now, I'm not calling for anybody to lose their job. In fact, I would call for the opposite. I think Todd Howard wants control. He's been with the company most of his life at this point, and he rose through the ranks. He's been around for a long time, with the later entries of Fallout and the Elder Scrolls for more than 2 decades. But Microsoft is in control now. If I were Microsoft, I would keep Todd around, but increase from one big team working on every major title in sequential order into one big team for each major IP, with their smaller studios or outside studios to work on other projects within the IP, like they did with Virtuous on the Oblivion Remastered. I think the Oblivion Remaster is a great example that you could put the workload onto another studio who is hungry to work with these franchises. I have no idea when this game is coming out, but I think Todd bungled this for years, and it's entirely on him. Yes, these games are huge. They take a lot of work. And no, I don't want anything to be rushed, but you still need to work on them. If Starfield was what Todd was passionate about, I think he should have just made a smaller team, and him and that team could have worked on that. Then he finds another person to lead the other major projects. However, I don't think that was ever going to happen because that would mean Todd giving up control. So I think he went with the worst option to retain control and invest into a very risky bet that I don't think worked out for anyone. Folks, that's all I've got for this video. If you'd like me to cover interesting topics in gaming, either old or new, just let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you to my YouTube channel members, Quinn and Chris Redbeard, and to my patrons, Shio and Lyra. My Patreon is free if you want to see what I'm up to behind the scenes, but if you do choose to support me, I'll shout you out in a video, and it helps me do this for a long time. Thanks for making it until the end. I'll see you in the next video.
I think everyone should be very patient.
And that's like